Welcome everyone. Recently, one of the subscribers of my YouTube channel has posted a question, and the question is about providing 6 marks questions and answers from Sydney's sonnet Loving in Truth, which is actually the number 1 sonnet, that is the first sonnet of the sonnet sequence entitled Astrophel and Stella. That's why I am making this video presentation. As you can see on the screen, there are several questions which I think are actually important for 5 or 6 marks questions from this poem. So I shall just quickly read out the questions and the answers. Please be attentive to the record if you want to get something from this video presentation. However, the first question is, how will you justify the title of Sydney's sonnet? Within quotation, Loving in Truth. Within bracket, number 1 from Astrophel and Stella. Astrophel and Stella is within quotation. The answer to this question is, the title of Sydney's sonnet under review is actually the first few, 3 to be specific, words from the poem itself. These words collectively convey the idea that the poet lover's love is sincere. It does not need any intellectual effort on the part of the readers to realize that the object of this love is the beloved. The poem itself is about the poet's effort at expressing this love through a poem. So, the background of deciding to write a poem is suggested, if not stated, in the title. Hence, one can say that the title of the poem under review is appropriate. The second question is, attempt a substance of Sydney's sonnet, Loving in Truth. It is within quotation, then within bracket number 1 from Astrophel and Stella. Astrophel and Stella as usual within quotation, of course double quotation. The answer to this question is, the love of the poet lover of Sydney's sonnet, Loving in Truth, within quotation, Loving in Truth, within bracket sonnet number 1, bracket close, from Astrophel and Stella, within quotation, for his beloved is genuine and he wants to express it through a poem. He hopes that the poem will satisfy the intellectual cravings of his beloved, and so she will read the poem. By reading the poem, she will know about his love, show him pity, and finally accept his love. Before starting to write, he reads the poems of his predecessors as well as his contemporaries so that he can find out those words which will help him in the said work. Since the feelings of the poet is original, these borrowed words do not help him. Naturally, he becomes anxious. However, when this anxiety turns to despair, the muse of poetry appears and advises him to write with the words from his own stock. Now, the third question. The question is, what is the central theme of Sydney's sonnet? Within bracket, Loving in Truth, within quotation, Loving in Truth, then within bracket number 1 from Astrophel and Stella. The answer to the question is, Sydney's sonnet, Loving in Truth within quotation, then within bracket number 1, bracket close, from Astrophel and Stella, has the expression of love as its central theme. Actually, the poet lover has sincere love for his beloved, and he wants to express it through poetry. It is because of this love that he does the intellectual labor of reading the poems of earlier poets. He also tries to find out those words which will convey his sincere feelings of love. It is true that his efforts do not succeed, and he has to adopt the policy as advised by the muse of poetry. However, since all the complications arise from the effort to express his love on the part of the poet lover, the expression of love turns out to be the theme of the poem under review. Now we have come to the fourth question. The question is, give in your own words the central idea of Sidney's sonnet, then within quotation, loving in truth, then within bracket number 1 from Astrophel and Stella. Put Astrophel and Stella within double quotation. Now the answer. Poetry writing is a creative process. So, culling of words from the poems of other poets, which suggests an imitative process, does not come to any help. The poet lover of Sidney's sonnet, loving in truth, within bracket number 1, makes the mistake of trying to express his sincere feelings of love by taking words from other poets. As a result, he has to face failure in communication, then a dash, communication between words and feelings. It is the muse of poetry whose message of, then start double quotation, look in thy heart and write, end the quotation. All the words within this quotation are in small letters. Convey the proper method of poetic creation. Indeed, to make poetic creation possible, both words and feelings will have to be of the poet's own. Now we have come to the fifth question. The question is, what are the dramatic elements found in Sidney's sonnet? Then within quotation, loving in truth, within bracket number 1 from Astrophel and Stella. Put Astrophel and Stella within double quotation. Now the answer. Sidney's sonnet, loving in truth, within quotation, within bracket number 1 from Astrophel and Stella. Put Astrophel and Stella within double quotation, is replete with dramatic elements. First, there is a note of drama, that is suspense, in the poet lover's wish of expressing his love for his beloved, not through any other means, but through poetry. Then, there is a note of anticipation, aided by imagination, in the ways the poet lover hopes his love to be accepted. This anticipation is dramatic in nature. Thirdly, audio-visual effect, an essential aspect of drama, is produced when the poet lover is said to ransack the poems of other poets as to find out those words which can aptly convey his feelings of love. Finally, there is a dramatic twist in the appearance of the muse and the muses properly guiding the poet lover. Now we have come to the sixth question. The question is, what does Sidney's sonnet, within quotation, loving in truth, within bracket number 1 from Astrophel and Stella as usual within double quotation, tell about the method of poetry writing? The answer to the question is, according to Sidney's sonnet, start the quotation, loving in truth, end the quotation, within bracket number 1, end the bracket from Astrophel and Stella within quotation. There are two methods of poetry writing. These are the neoclassical method and the romantic method. According to the neoclassical method, a poet writes by taking words from the poems of other poets. However, such a method is applicable mostly in case of poems with themes already used by poets. Then there is the romantic method of poetry writing, and it propagates the idea that the poet must express his own feelings. Since feelings vary from a man to another man, borrowed words do not come to any help, and so the poet has to rely upon his own stock of words. Now we have come to the seventh question. How is the beloved projected in Sidney's sonnet Loving in Truth within bracket number 1 from Astrophel and Stella? The answer to the question is, as a sonneteer, Sidney belongs to the Petrarchan tradition, and so he believes that the beloved is a superhuman creature. Then give a dash, superhuman in terms of beauty and quality. That is why the poet has an impression of the superior intelligence of the beloved. It is because of this impression that he believes that the ladylove will get pleasure out of the intellectual pain he has employed in writing the poem. Not only that, this strain of superiority is continued when he assumes that this pleasure will make her read the poem. The act of reading will make her know about his love. The said knowledge will make her pity him, and this attitude of pity will ultimately help him in gaining her consent to his love proposal. Now we have come to the eighth question. The question is, what does Sidney suggest about the neoclassical method of poetry writing? The answer to the question is, according to Sidney's sonnet Loving in Truth within bracket number 1 from Astrophel and Stella, there are two methods of poetry writing. These are the neoclassical method and the romantic method. According to the neoclassical method, a poet writes by taking words from the poems of other poets. However, such a method is applicable mostly in cases of poems with themes already used by poets. Alexander Pope, a champion of this kind of poetry, truly defines poetry as something in which what oft was thought but never so well expressed. As this definition suggests, such a method is applicable to ideas and feelings already expressed and has no connection with poems with novel and individual ideas. The charm of poetry, according to this method, lies not in its matter but in its manner. Now we have come to the ninth question. The question is, what does Sidney suggest about the romantic method of poetry writing? The answer to the question is, according to Sidney's sonnet Loving in Truth within bracket number 1 from Astrophel and Stella, there are two methods of poetry writing. These are the neoclassical method and the romantic method. The romantic method of poetry writing propagates the idea that the poet must express his own feelings. Since feelings vary from a man to another man, borrowed words do not come to any help, and so the poet has to rely upon his own stock of words. The poet lover of the sonnet Loving in Truth within bracket number 1 from Astrophel and Stella makes the mistake of trying to express his sincere feelings of love through words borrowed from the poems of other poets. The best definition of this kind of poetry is provided by William Wordsworth in his preface to the lyrical ballads as, within quotation, spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. We have come to the penultimate question, that is the question which is before which comes before the ultimate. This is the 10th question, and the question is, how will you assess Sidney's Loving in Truth within bracket number 1 from Astrophel and Stella as a sonnet. The answer to the question is Sydney's poem Loving in Truth from Astrophel and Stella is a Petrarchan sonnet with some differences. It has 14 lines and deals with a single theme. Give a dash, the theme of unfulfilled love on the part of the poet lover. These 14 lines are divided into an octave and a sestet. While the octave tells about the poet lover's intention of intellectually entertaining the beloved, give a comma, the sestet points out the difficulties faced by him in the said process. The volta occurs in the last line, and so the complications are resolved at the intervention of the muse. The poem differs from the Petrarchan model in terms of rhyme pattern and meter. Precisely speaking, the rhyme pattern of ABAB, ABAB, CDC, DEE is totally different from the Petrarchan rhyme pattern of ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. Moreover, iambic hexameter is the meter in which Sydney's poem is written, but it is not the metrical foot used by Petrarch. So, the final question of this video presentation is attempt an analysis of the structure and style of Sydney's sonnet within bracket number 1 from Loving in Truth. The answer to the question is Sydney's sonnet Loving in Truth within bracket number 1 from Astrophel and Stella uses the Italian or Petrarchan structure with a variation. To be precise, in place of the octave sestet structure of the Italian or Petrarchan sonnet, the sestet of this sonnet has a couplet at the end. In an Italian or Petrarchan sonnet, while the octave presents the problem, the sestet provides the conclusion. In this sonnet, it is the concluding couplet which provides the final solution of the poet's problem. So far as the style of the sonnet under review is concerned, it is autobiographical and uses witty metaphor, bitter-sweet tone and regular metrical verse. So this is all about the question and answer, exactly saying the 5 marks question or answer from this poem. Thanks for being patient listeners of this video presentation. Thank you everyone.